It's been a minute, but I got a question for you. Did you find RWBY Volume 9 satisfying? I certainly didn't. But in the best of ways? Welcome back, my sweets. Today we're doing a deep dive into the characters and themes of RWBY Volume 9. Spoilers ahead! Firstly, we need to establish the main theme for the volume, which most would say Wonderland, but they would actually be wrong. While this volume does take place in a Wonderland-esque tale, the main theme for this volume is motivation, our drive, our will to continue forward. You can see this with our three main focuses being John, Yang and Blake's relationship, and of course, RWBY. Weiss has been put on the back burner of this volume due to the fact that the last three volumes have been very Weiss-centric, and any good writer will tell you that you need to know when and where to use characters. Weiss's main use this volume is actually comedic relief in her crush on older John. And before we go any further...
Almost a 20-year age gap, huh? Yeah, that's not creepy at all.
No, Manga Common, this isn't creepy because it isn't reciprocated by the older party. Weiss can have as much of a crush on older men as she wants, but it only becomes creepy when the older party reciprocates. John never shows interest in Weiss as an adult. Hell, he hasn't shown romantic interest in her since Pyrrha. I would know. I binge-watched the entire series in less than a month. Now that we know where Weiss's character falls currently, let's move on to the second most controversial part of this volume, Blake and Yang's relationship. For about 3 volumes, they've had a subtly brewing relationship, finally being solidified in this volume. This is taking place after defeating Adam together in a previous volume, symbolically moving past the traumas of an abusive relationship with the experience and understanding of a healthy one. Blake and Yang's relationship is actually a mirror of Neo and Torchwick's, starting from an abusive relationship and then finding yourself in the arms of someone who's good for you, someone that puts your needs before their desires. Finding your motivation and will to fight in a person and losing a sense of yourself after their death. Neo's story comes to a pause with becoming one with the tree to re-find herself, her sense of purpose and her motivations without Torchwick being by her side, while Blake and Yang find themselves and their motivations in each other after already having found who they are individually. Neo, from what we've seen, wasn't able to establish herself as a person before going from her traumatic relationship with her parents to her relationship with Torchwick. Even her design being based off of his tells us this. Even if we take siblings, Weiss and Winter, while having similarities to show their ties to one another, they are still, in the majority, their own individual designs. While when we compare Neo and Torchwick's, they're the only characters in the show with such heavy overlap that visual storytelling has to be screaming in your ear to tell you that Neo based her entire identity off of Torchwick because of her view of him saving her. The only other characters in the show with such heavy design overlap would be Summer Rose and her daughter Ruby Rose. And we already know that it's established that RWBY based her entire personality off of her mother and is following directly in her footsteps. But more on that in a minute. With that aside, it brings us to the most controversial and heartbreaking part of this volume, RWBY's suicide. And before I hear anyone start to claim that this came out of nowhere, I have some breakdowns to share with you. Character development, character story, and plot development. 3 very different things that people that don't know how proper storytelling works get very, very confused. Character development would be Yang learning how to continue forward after losing her arm. A slow internal battle of relearning your most basic of skills.
I'm scared. Everyone keeps talking about me getting back to normal, and I appreciate it, but this is normal now.
Character story would be Yang going to find her mother, learning of Raven's secrets and viewing her extremely differently afterwards, and her entire exchange of using her mother to find RWBY. While plot development would be learning of Raven being the Spring Maiden and the effects that has on the story going forward. Now that we have a basis of understanding those 3 principles, this entire volume is character story for RWBY, foreshadowed long ago with the episode of the apathy apathy, losing hope in Ozpin, trying to keep everyone together but failing, seeing the worst of her idol, her uncle, and her giving up. While in the episode with the apathy, it was only for a moment did she get to the point that the others had already gotten to, but you can see the everlasting effects throughout the rest of the series to date. Her losing hope and trust in Ozpin and seeing the betrayal of Lionheart is what drove her to lie to Ironwood, feeling the pressure of fighting an uphill battle, trying to keep her team together and losing friends and allies left and right. All of it comes to a boiling point after learning of her friend's death, the one that RWBY broke the fucking universe to keep safe, realizing that she's failed. Again. That the impossible fight is increasing in on her. That she could be losing more people while stuck in the ever after. After realizing how tired she is. Tired of the mistrust, the betrayal, the loss, tired of fighting. RWBY drinks the tea to join the tree, to re-find herself, her motivation for living. People view this as RWBY committing suicide, and from someone that's been suicidal for years, I'm genuinely uncertain. When it comes to RWBY's understanding of the tea and the tree, we genuinely don't know what RWBY thinks will happen when she drinks it. She has conflicting testimonies of what will happen, on whether she will become a stronger version of herself or on whether she'll disappear forever. RWBY views herself as not being enough, that if she had done something else, had been smarter, faster, something better, she could have saved Penny, Pyrrha, Beacon, Atlas, all of them. Look back at season 2 where Team RWBY's mentor Oobleck asks each of them why they want to become a huntress. Each of the girls being shaken by the question and even the answer that each of them give.
The honest reason? I'm a thrill seeker. I want to travel around the world and get wrapped up in as many crazy adventures as I can. And if I help people along the way, then that's even better.
It's exactly as you said. I'm a Shnee. I have a legacy of honor to uphold. Once I realized I was capable of fighting, there was no longer a question of what I would do with my life. It was my duty.
Interesting.
There's too much wrong in this world to just stand by and do nothing. Inequality, corruption, someone has to stop it.
Very well. How?
Well, it doesn't matter. We know why we're here. Right?
But then when RWBY gives her answer, it's a short and concise one.
Wondering why I've been interrogating your teammates all day?
Actually, I was wondering, why did you want to become a huntsman?
The only one that the mentor doesn't question as it's full-hearted and genuine.
Hey, did Oobleck ask you why you wanted to be a huntress? I mean, what did you tell him?
No, he didn't. Weird. Oh well, good night, guys.
Then look to the caterpillar scene of Volume 9, when each are faced with their past selves. The girls Yang, Blake, and Wise are easily able to reassure their past doubts and struggles with how much they've grown. But RWBY? She's stayed the same throughout the show. The only thing that's changed is an ever-growing trauma, a pressure put onto her from everyone around. Ozpin, her team, her mentors. She's shaken and can't answer her old full-hearted, genuine questions because she's scared to open up about the fear and trauma everything has caused her, that this isn't what she thought it would be. We get to see more of RWBY while her consciousness is in the tree, her anger, resentment, but also a new drive, one coming from a place she's had this entire time yet couldn't draw from, herself. This can be heard in her song, Red Like Roses, where her mother, Summer, begs and pleads with RWBY to not follow in her path as it led to Summer's death, and she doesn't want that for RWBY. But in the reprise, from when RWBY fully embraces herself, it sings another tune, one of carving her own path, and while similar to her mother's, it's her own story, her own power. She has become her own motivation and drive to continue forward. This was never a tale of suicide to success. It was one of taking the proper time to look within yourself and see who you truly are, and accepting yourself as that to start on the journey to growth. At least for me it is. That's the beauty of media. We all interpret things differently. This is also reflected in John's story. After arriving, John accidentally went back in time, so far that he was even able to help Alex and Lewis. However, just as Ruby is struggling with not being enough, John is as well, channeling his feelings into protecting the village of paper pals to the point of hurting them instead of helping them grow. John, just like Ruby, has lost so many people, but he also had to take the life of his friend to help protect the power within her, letting her instead focus on the person that should receive the power while dying in the arms of a friend instead of an enemy, a piece she tried to give the previous Winter Maiden. John has gone from being someone he viewed as not being enough, not strong enough, smart enough, or powerful enough to protect his loved ones, to having had to take a loved one's life with his own hands. John mirrors Ruby's feelings of uselessness, while struggling with the feelings of being the reason for their death. While both of them felt that symbolically with Pyrrha, John now has to battle with the fact that he had actually done the act. John and Ruby both blame themselves for Penny's death. Ruby for not being enough, that even when she figured out how to save Penny from the virus, Penny still ended up dying. And John for having been the one to plunge the sword into her chest, not being able to stop Cinder on his own, or even with help. Lastly, this brings us to the Curious Cat, someone whose motivation we find out is wanting to find his creators to understand why they abandoned him, only to be betrayed by Alex, whose motivations changed after visiting the caterpillar. Once having wanted to use everything to her own desires, she finally found herself questioning herself as a person, deciding to help the Ever After heal and progress instead of sit and fester, becoming the blacksmith that helps Ruby find herself. Thanks to Ruby's introspection and finding a new drive, a new reason to keep going forward, Neo is able to let go of her past and start on her own journey of finding herself without her parents, without Torchwick, only Neo. At the start of this video essay, I posed the question on if RWBY Volume 9 was satisfying to you. My answer still stands at no. A satisfactory conclusion would involve more concrete answers. Blake and Yang not feeling as though they got fanfic boxed together, John coming to terms with having done what he did because he had to do it for the greater good, and Ruby coming out being different, maybe a new outfit with a new attitude and a look on life. But I would have hated that. While it would have been more satisfying as a singular season, it would have felt hollow narratively and overarching. The group is gearing up for a war. The only time Blake and Yang could allow themselves to forget everything and enjoy their feelings for each other would be in a situation like this, away from the stress and danger and able to focus on the butterflies and face flushes. John getting over taking his friend's life within a season would be unrealistic and a devastating portrayal of having to go through with allowing someone to end their own life by your own hands. Ruby going into the tree and coming out an entirely new person would be a cop-out. It wouldn't be Ruby, it would be a new character. I know some people don't like Ruby, but if the writers had let her become someone totally new, that would have wholeheartedly been symbolic for suicide, as the point of suicide is to remove yourself from everything, leaving no trace of who you were or what you meant to people. But it also would be unsatisfying from a writing standpoint. While action would have been cool, writing-wise, it would be a cop-out, the easy way, if you will. Removing the issues of a character by just removing the character themselves? Gross. But having a character grow, face new sides of themselves, and face it head on, being able to refine their footing and come out of their tunnel, the darkness they'd been in for so long, and to keep fighting, that's satisfying to me. RWBY Volume 9 may not be satisfying as a whole, but their theming and writing was a lot more well handled than some people like to give it credit for.
Don't worry. Things will be better tomorrow.
Also, Ironwood's character progression was top-notch, but I'll fight people's views on that in another video.